The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Jillian Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Acumatica's 2021 R1 Release and You, presented by Jeremy Patoka, Mike Duberstein, and Seth Kuhn of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the question section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment after the presentation to answer our one survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels, so we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jeremy.
Thank you, Jolene. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here, and then we can get started with the 2021 R1 release highlights that we'll be doing today. So everybody should be seeing my screen now. Just a quick rundown of our agenda. I've got some other housekeeping items specific to Acumatica, both products and company updates. A few updates I'd like to make around the SWK family and an additional resource really that's available for our customers. And then highlights from 2021 R1 is going to take up the bulk of our presentation. Those of you that have met a couple of us on the solutions architecture team, as Jolene said, myself, Jeremy Patoka, will be driving a lot of the product demonstration today in the feature set. We'll move it over to Seth for some of the e-commerce specific features later. And then we will have Mike Duberstein just make a couple of really announcements or notes about construction edition specific features that are rolling out and available now with 21 R1. We'll try to save a couple minutes at the end just for some questions via chat. But like Jolene said, go ahead and send those throughout the webinar today. And I'll make sure and I'll just stop and check with Jolene to see if there are any questions at some different points. We want this to be as interactive as a webinar can be for you guys. So where I wanted to start for today is just a couple of other important items related to Acumatica as a company and as a product. So the Acumatica Summit 2021 is going to happen in July, mid-July. It's July 18th to July 23rd. It's the same location that it was supposed to happen earlier in the year, but just due to the current pandemic, they did put that off until later in the summer. You can go to the website summit.acumatica.com and learn more information. But we're about 134 days away from that. There are starting to be some trade shows, and as folks are getting vaccinated, I believe, and what I've been told from Acumatica is this date's going to stick. So if you're somebody that's interested in learning more about going to the summit, we had a great time last year with all of our customers that attended and a Acumatica SWK customer event. I hear that there's another one in the makes for this year as far as fun activity and time together with SWK, Acumatica specific customers and consultants and other folks from SWK that will be there. So again, the website was summit.acumatica.com. It's always a fun time. It's like a big family get together is what Acumatica's CEO John Roskill always calls it, and definitely something you should at least consider. And if you're not ready to travel yet, be ready to register remote and watch some of the event live. It's something that we've all gotten familiar with just doing things remote. So if that's the situation for you, be sure to register and just get on the listing for the live video feeds that'll be coming from the summit. A couple of other notes that I just wanted to make about SWK updates is that we have a new VP of Customer Success, and his name is Alex Kay, and I just have a quick a thumbnail picture of him over to the right there. Alex K actually used to run our enterprise management practice, which was our ERP practice that sold and implemented Sage X3 historically. But we're all really excited about Alex and his new role because he's got a ton of Acumatica, a ton of ERP experience. So what he's really bringing to the table is 20, 25 years of veteran ERP experience, implementing and supporting customers during projects and after going live. So if you haven't heard from Alex yet, you'll probably start to hear things that are coming from Alex's office, like there's going to be some customer surveys that are coming soon. He's really looking for ways that we can engage customers deeper. Make sure that we're providing you guys with the support that you need and want, and are really serving you with this new product, Acumatica, that some of you are implementing now, some of you are looking at, and others of you have been using for years. So again, really excited about his intervention in our customer base, I'll call it, and looking forward to some of you that haven't met him, meeting him and crossing paths with him, even if it's just through the customer surveys that'll be coming out in the near future. Thanks for taking those, by the way. Acumatica sends surveys, SWK sends surveys. So we know you guys get hit up with surveys a lot, but it's really important feedback for us that you guys fill those out. It's important feedback for Acumatica. The big change from the way people used to buy and implement software is now you're in a subscription, right? So we're kind of really on an annual basis always talking about, do we need to make any changes? Do we need to do new integrations, right? The SWK customer is really a customer for life, even superseding Acumatica. So part of that is always making sure we've got our finger on the pulse of our customers, and we haven't been able to get on site with you guys in a long time now, over a year for many of you. So it's a really important way for us to just have our pulse on customers' feelings and thoughts about us and how we might be able to make their experience better. The other housekeeping item that I just wanted to highlight is the community site for Acumatica. And I thought this was relevant because here we are, we're going to be looking at the Acumatica next version, which was 2021 R1. That's what we're here for today. And I'm just going to slide over my screen. Acumatica has a site called community.acumatica.com. And if you don't already have a login for this, please go set yourself up a profile. This is the whole Acumatica community coming together in a single forum. So this is resellers like SWK, it's customers like you guys, it's consultants, it's solution architects, it's developers, and then Acumatica is very much engaged inside of this portal. So it's a really easy way just to have discussion forums, and the forums are actually broken down by topics. So if you ever have a question, for example, and you're setting something up in the e-commerce connectors within Acumatica, like here's a connection about somebody that can't get their big commerce sandbox to sync. This is a very easy way to post and get all sorts of feedback from different folks. Maybe it's another customer that can answer your question. I would say always make sure you're submitting support tickets to our support email address, but this is a great place to go just to see if someone else had that question, and kind of like how if you're fixing a dryer at your house or a dishwasher and you're trying to do it on your own, you go to YouTube and just look up a video. Think of this the same way. Right? You're going to be able to go to the community site and you're going to be able to potentially get some help for topics that other customers or other implementers have struggled with and get answers quick. Also, you're able to see up here in the upper right the version information. So as you guys know, Acumatica does 2 releases a year, R1 and R2. We're here talking about 21 R1 today, but in the fall of 2021, Acumatica will release what's called 2021 R2. Every year, the R1 and the R2 with the 2020s takes me a little while to get onto it, but 2021 R1 is what we're looking at today. R2 is always about 6 months after. So it's a great place to come, and you can just hit this pre-release versions menu button here, and it will actually allow you to then go in and see any pre-release information. So like here, there's certain questions about getting ready for 2021 R1. You can see certain information about the beta of that. This version of Acumatica will be available for general availability, I believe on 3/17 is the date, so 7 days from today. But you can see some of this thread goes back quite some time, so you can start to get the information that's available within your user role inside of this community. Okay. The last community type item I wanted to cover before we move into the actual presentation for today was just this product ideas website. Acumatica historically had used a program called AHA, AHA, and that's a separate product management feedback site. It was called feedback.acumatica.com. They've actually moved all of that into this community forum and community.acumatica website. So all those ideas came over and were migrated, but you can always go and vote on new ones here. Some of the features I'm going to talk about today in 21 R1 were actually features that were on this roadmap. So Acumatica, I would say more aggressively than ever, is listening to the feedback from the VARs, from the implementation consultants, from you guys as customers, and they're actually ranking that and putting those items on their detailed roadmap. So if you're thinking about anything even today that you're like, man, Acumatica should really be able to do this, right? Go ahead and search for that idea, see if it's already here and vote for it. And then once you've actually validated it's not an existing idea, then you can go ahead and you can create a new one. But there's a lot of linked topics to this. This is just a really helpful place, and it's relatively new. Acumatica has still been rolling this out over the past year. So I thought it'd be really important for us to take a few minutes and just highlight this today for you. Great. Well, let's jump right in. Typically, the feedback on these presentations is that you guys want to see as many features as possible. The last time we did this, I think we went over 40 or so features. We'll try to hit that number today throughout all the different options and features we're going to talk about. But just looking back from a high level and stepping back, Acumatica 2021 R1 is loaded with features that are balanced. And that's the word that I would use for this release, is balanced. You have really nice balance across usability and reporting and technology, which are more of your platform features. Okay, it doesn't matter what industry you are, if you sell, if you manufacture, if you build, if you do projects, right? These features are for everybody. As well as best-in-class functionality. So I think of this column as more robust features in the actual modules themselves. Okay, for example, multiple base currencies, centralized vendor management. Down in the field service module, what I'll talk about today in more detail is actually linking AP bills to appointment records or entering a bill on an appointment record. So we're really getting further into those core modules, as well as the vertical industry editions. So for example, Acumatica, and Seth will talk about this later, has released a similar to the Big Commerce connector to Acumatica that's been published and supported by Acumatica Direct, not a custom integration, but a native integration. They've now rolled out a native integration for Shopify. On the manufacturing side, Acumatica now supports out of the box an integration with Arena PLM. And I'll talk about that a little later. And then finally, Mike Duberstein will mention just briefly at the end some of the Procore integration, or just the deepening of the Procore integration. So what you're seeing here is really a focus, again, in that balanced way of let's keep the platform relevant and have the best technology, universal search and authentication methods. Let's continue to build the building blocks and foundation of the system, deepening all the core modules. And then let's continue to serve the industry editions with more connectors, more functionality that folks are asking for and need. So where we're going to get started today is inside of the 2021 R1 financial module enhancements. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the area of finance because, one, I'm highlighting just the things that I believe are important for our group of customers. So although something that I say may not be important or relevant for you individually, there's likely somebody else that's going to watch this webinar that is. You can go online and you can watch the full 2.5-hour release where they cover really all of the features or most of the features in 2021 R1, and Acumatica did a great job doing that. Really what we try to do at SWK now is say, hey, we know how the majority of our customers are using Acumatica. So let's consolidate that list down and show them probably the things they've asked us for or some of the things that are most relevant for them. And that's where we're going to focus today. A lot of that happens to be in the core financial setup area. So I'm going to spend some time there, and then we'll move on to the other vertical additions as we move throughout the presentation. So the place that we're actually going to start is in financials, talking about the centralized vendor management as well as the intercompany accounting. Now, I show this. I actually was looking at the 2020 R2 slide, and I think I've a slide for the webinar that we did last year for the second release of 2020. And this slide was generally the same, but Acumatica over the past, I would say 7 versions, has made additional steps to be able to allow for more enhanced multi-company infrastructure, to be able to do things like cross-company sales, consolidations, intercompany account balancing, master financial periods. So it's really important that we do talk about kind of the next iteration of the multi-company infrastructure. Acumatica works within an instance, tenant, company, and branch structure. Most folks that we have are using the tenant structure as their consolidated organization because tenants are really intended to be wholly separate companies, right? Wholly separate businesses with, think of it like different databases of customers that would never really need to be able to intercompany transact or buy and sell. We can report, and Acumatica does have a consolidation process to do that at the tenant level. But what Acumatica has released most recently is cross-company sales and cross-company purchasing between the companies and branches within tenants, okay? So here's the breakdown of what those tenants, why you would set up a company as a tenant versus a company in Acumatica 2021 R1. A tenant you would want because that tenant is a separate base currency, for example, the consolidation using period-based summaries and then unique data. And that's what I'm really going to show you today is just a little bit more of the intercompany functionality that's available and really segregating, say, vendors to specific companies within Acumatica. So what was completed in 2020 R2, and some of you still may be in 2020 R1 or previous, but if you do have multiple companies in 2020 R2, you were able to do cross-company sales, so AR to AP. AR in one company becomes the AP to another. That's that due to, due from within a single tenant. The selling goods to related companies, so actually now pulling that into intercompany purchasing and sales is part of 2021 R1. So if I have a sales order in company A for a product and that's being purchased from company B or vice versa, I guess, purchase order and sales order, those can be inherently linked within Acumatica. There are some additional features that Acumatica is looking for and obviously continuing to build out this roadmap. I'm going to just jump into the software now, as long as things haven't timed out for me. One of the things I wanted to highlight here, which seems really simple, but some of you may not know that this has changed over the course of the time in Acumatica. In one of the releases last year, they allowed customers to be able to begin segmenting customers within a single tenant to visibility within certain companies. So in this demo instance that I'm in, I've got my demo company, Revision 2 Capital and Revision 2 Services. And in prior versions, both customers and vendors were actually visible to all companies. And in order to restrict that, you had to really dive down into the row level restrictions and set up all these types of groups. And it was just a little clunky, to be honest. So Acumatica is always trying to get rid of that clunkiness. So now what they've done on the customer in the last version and in this version, the vendor is actually being able to restrict visibility to certain companies or branches within those companies from the financial settings tab on the vendor. Okay. Again, this already exists on the customer. That was recent as of the previous release, but it's a really nice feature to be able to say, you know what, this vendor only has access to this specific company. And then it wouldn't be able to transact with the others. Or if you had user rights to just the others, you wouldn't see it in the others. Okay. Great. A couple other things on the intercompany side that Acumatica has done is they've also set up this idea of company groups. So I don't have any company groups set up for today. But what you're able to do is actually within your companies and branches, set up different groups and assign those groups to records like customer or vendor. So I'd be able to actually pull those companies in and set up groups, and these groups slide into your reporting mechanisms as well. When you do wind up turning on the intercompany accounting and the intercompany sales and purchasing, you're going to notice that there's a number of additional screens. Acumatica uses processing screens a lot of times and the reason they do that is they like to give companies options on, do you want Acumatica to automatically process these, or do you want a user to come in and say, review and then generate any intercompany sales or intercompany purchasing orders, purchase orders. So you're going to see a couple new screens, and that's all they're for, is to actually go ahead and generate those documents. And remember, just like any other screen in Acumatica, you're able to put that on the schedule and you can schedule those. This would actually generate intercompany purchase receipts. And as I mentioned, you're going to see a number of other screens generating intercompany sales orders, and then within the AP module, generating intercompany documents, AP documents. The next feature, I'm going to move back to my PowerPoint slide here for a moment, was this sounds boring and I almost removed it from the agenda, but we get asked this question all the time, so I thought it'd be worthwhile to talk about. And that's enhanced credit card settlement processing. If you're a company that does business online, or anybody that has a lot of credit card transactions, and in this example, it's using authorized.net batches. Oftentimes, you have a lot of detailed batches at the processor level, and then it takes all of those and it just bulk puts them into a single batch, and then you have to settle that, or really what that means is you have to create a bank deposit for that amount. And it can often be tough to tie that out because you've got many to one between your credit card processor and your ERP system, because the ERP is tracking those individual sales or invoices and payments as detailed documents. And then it's really tough to tie that out and then generate a bank deposit when you're looking at just a lump sum. So what Acumatica is allowing you to do within the authorized.net specifically integration is there's a preference area to be able to automate the settlement, okay? The issue is that today there is no way to be able to create bank deposits, so these need to be created manually. So to support this functionality, the settlement batch entity has been introduced, and that's through the API with authorized.net. The settlement batch is then going to be able to be a group of transactions that are submitted together for settlement with the bank. And Acumatica is going to automatically create a deposit for any of these settlements. Okay. This is something I would be happy to show you guys more one-on-one There's a couple of screens in here that make this work. And again, I would just highlight for today, as far as I know, it is restricted to the authorized.net integration, okay, for credit card processing. I imagine that the other credit card processor options will have to also provide functionality like this, or else, you know, why would people want to use another credit card processor, especially if you struggle with credit card settlements today and needing to create all those deposits manually. All right, another one that I've been watching out, which seems really simple. Again, I like to highlight the simple ones that we get questions on often, is opportunity contacts on sales orders, or really just contacts on sales orders. This is something I customized for someone even, I don't know, probably 5 years ago was the first time I customized this for someone on a sales order record. And here's the problem. On the sales order record in previous releases of Acumatica, there was no native place to be able to have a contact. So when there's an issue with the sales order, you had remittance or ship to and bill to contacts, but you didn't have another contact. So Acumatica has added that contact field on the sales order, and now it will also be able to be filled from opportunities within the CRM. So if you're someone that's using the Acumatica CRM and creating orders from opportunities, this was kind of a two-legged issue. Number one, the sales order didn't have the contact that the opportunity record did. So now that's solved. The other part that was solved was we want that translated from the opportunity record to the sales order. So if there's a contact on the opportunity, that's going to be brought over onto the sales order. So I'm just going to pull up a sales order to show you what we're talking about here. I have a sales order up for my ABC Holdings customer. And what I can do here is, now that they're selected, I can actually go in and I can look up. And of course, I think I picked one that was not the example I wanted to show you guys. Let me pull up the other one I had for us. Actually, maybe let's just go enter one together. Great. So it was the bartending school here. So USA Bartending School. And as you know, probably you can have multiple contacts on these customer and business account records. And the problem in the past, guys, was this contact field here. So am I dealing with Fadi or Sam on this specific order? So I could actually now select Sam. Again, if you're using the Acumatica CRM, that contact field is already on the opportunity record. If you generate orders from opportunities, that data will come over and Sam will be on the sales order just like he was on the opportunity record. In the past, like I mentioned, you had shipping, ship to, details, but you didn't actually have a specific contact. So I have my default ship to, my default bill to, but I didn't have a native place to be able to have another contact. That contact can be put on any forms like a sales order confirmation or other. Again, simple field, simple feature, but knowing that's something customers have had to customize for in the past, I thought it was relevant to highlight today. All right. While we're on the sales order, I'm going to cover a couple of the platform features. Acumatica tries to make it easier for users to personalize the system with low-code or no-code customizations every single release. So a couple of the ones I just wanted to highlight here that were originally really for CRM workflow customizations have now been extended to other workflow areas. So I can hit this button to show the state diagram, and this is tapping into the new workflow engine in Acumatica. If you guys are familiar and have been an Acumatica user for a while, you knew there used to be this thing called business automation and business steps. This new workflow engine is very visual, as you can see, and allows for building a customized workflow within the sales order processing. So you can see, just like any type of state diagram workflow, I'm going to create the sales order and it's then going to be put on hold. I can remove the order, and then depending on where the workflow should go next, you're able to actually see what steps are available and see the full workflow of sales order processing. Okay. Not going to dive too much deeper into this today. This part gets a little technical, but I just wanted to highlight, if you were excited about the workflow engine that was implemented around the CRM, that has been extended to other areas of the system. I also wanted to touch on the user-defined fields. So Acumatica's user-defined fields are custom fields that you don't need a programmer to add. These used to just be on master file records like vendors and customers and employees. And probably 3 years ago now, Acumatica added them to transactional forms. So when you add a new UDF to a transactional form, it's added natively as a second tab at the top. Certainly, if you wanted to add fields, we can do that through code customizations, and Acumatica is really good at that. But this is something that no customization package for, no programmer for, right? Just adding UDFs. One of the extended features of UDFs in 2021 R1 is the ability to further default these. And guys, I think we're going to continue to see little changes on these UDFs for each release to make them more robust, to be able to eliminate the need to actually do a code customization to these screens. So if I open up the customization tab and hit Manage User-Defined Fields, this will be the place. If you're using a version, I think it was 2019 and on, this is the way that custom fields can be added to any record. If you haven't taken advantage of that, go ahead and play with it in your sandbox. So you can add user-defined fields, and if that value doesn't exist, you can manage the attributes, which would be a way to actually create new fields. I created one earlier just as an example. So you can tie these to the order type as well. So if I just wanted to have this be on quotes, or if I just wanted to have these custom fields be on RMAs, or I would be able to actually go ahead and select the order type and define which UDFs have access to which order type. Now, you could do required or hidden in versions past. The new feature in Acumatica is actually default these fields. So if I want this to be defaulted to existing contract, and this was just a silly example that I put in, any use case you have on any transactional form to have another field for, or to default a field, you're able to do that in Acumatica, just point and click here. So I can actually now default that to be existing contract, and basically every new order that's entered, I'm able to have a default of existing contract or whatever value I would have put there. Okay. And I want to actually go through and create a new one, but the next one that I create would have that existing contract defaulted in that field. These can be drop downs, these can be multi-select, these can be text entry. So a lot of different types of custom field types that you can add, point and click in Acumatica. All right. Well, the next place that I wanted to go is actually dashboards. I'll just pop back into the Acumatica, to the PowerPoint we had, and then we'll go back into the browser here in a moment. Acumatica continues in every release to make updates to the dashboards. When you think about dashboards in 2021 R1, guys, I want you to think about two things. One is more widget types, and two is more stock dashboards. So starting in this next release, Acumatica is adding new stock dashboards that pretty much any business would be interested in. In prior versions, the tools were always there and some basic templates were available, but if you really wanted to build your own dashboards, you guys need to do it. and it's not very technical, or you had one of our consultants do it. So the more that Acumatica just includes in the base of these updated versions, the better, because we can kind of borrow and share from what other people want, or what just any person in your industry would want to see. So a couple of the ones that were introduced are these KPI meters. So what you're seeing here is a KPI meter where it's taking the sales in a CRM example versus the quota, and you're able to identify, just like on the KPI tiles that you know and love, you're able to put the color tolerances in. But it just gives you kind of that speedometer look. It just changes the data visualization for you. You can also have funnel charts. The funnels in Acumatica were functional, but didn't always present the data in a meaningful way. So this is a good example of the funnel chart over here to the right, where it's listed out the stages in the sales process, and then we'll actually present updated data in a funnel. And then you can also link tiles. And I'll hope to show you a couple examples of those where, from like the new controller dashboard, I can actually link into what my AP and AR clerks dashboards are. It's helpful if they're out of the office for the week and I'm actually doing their job. It'd be good to see the same view they see when they log in every day. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight that the ability to copy and paste these dashboard widgets for implementing these faster is now available. So being able to copy and paste widgets around. Really, again, guys, think of it those two ways. How can we get these dashboards faster as copy and paste or available out of the box without needing to do it yourself or hire SWK to do it? And then the other category is just these new ways to visualize the data through different types of dashboard tiles. So I have a couple examples pulled up here. Actually, I think I might have opened up different screens for you, so you guys are just going to watch me go over here and click to it. So I've got a new controller view. I'm going to open here in one tab, and then I'm also going to open the new AR clerk view and the AP clerk view. Let me just pull these up. I apologize, I had them pulled up earlier and I must have dumped them. All right. So these are the click-through buttons. If you see this up here, and I need to resize this a little bit based on the screen size I'm using, but I could actually open up the AR clerk dashboard and the AP clerk dashboard from this dashboard. So it's just a different type of dashboard widget where I'm actually then going to click into a new screen, even if that screen is a dashboard. So this really is going to allow people to use the dashboard as their menuing system if they'd like. Some of you have actually taken advantage of the workflow in Acumatica and the way to be able to have a visual diagram and link those images up. This is kind of the same concept, except now you're going to be doing that from a dashboard view and kind of click through your daily activities rather than using the workspaces over to the left. It's all about preference, and people like different things. This is the new out-of-the-box one. I just upgraded Acumatica, and this is the one that's now available. So, I didn't have to do anything to set this one up. Really like this cash position. It's actually breaking it down by my different bank accounts I have set up in this demo environment. So if I wanted to remove one, I could just deselect that, and it's going to now snap into place with the updated data. All right. It breaks my aging down into the 1 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and over 90. So I'm able to see that in a very visual way. And then I can also just see my income versus my expense by month. Okay. And remember, all the dashboards are drillable. So Acumatica has always had access to this data. We're just trying to really now, with Acumatica's support, they're going out there and talking to customers and analyzing businesses and saying, hey, what do all businesses want to see if you're a controller? And this is the type of information that they've collected, and then they're putting that into the product base. Similar for AR clerk. These look a little different than they used to, but the concept is the same. And the AP clerk, right? Now it's got AP data on it, like my top 10 overdue AP balances, my total accounts payable by financial period, my vendor purchasing trends. Okay. I think the biggest takeaway for dashboards in 2021 R1 guys is that you're going to get more of them and you don't have to work to set them up. And I think everyone's happy to hear that Acumatica is doing more work and just creating more templates for you to use and not have to create on your own. Another usability feature is the side panels. Acumatica released side panels a while ago, but they continue to make more and more updates on them, and they become to be faster. If you were like me and when the side panels first came out, you thought that's going to be great, and then they loaded really slow. Acumatica has made that processing a lot quicker, so they do load much faster. I would give it a try again and encourage you to go back to trying them out. But what this side panel is if I'm looking at a list of my customer or my business accounts in Acumatica, which is technically vendors or customers, I can, without drilling down, see additional data about those customers or vendors. So if I click up here, and this one I haven't been in a while, so let me just reload this, guys. If I click into open that side panel up, I have this really split up over lots of different types of categories. So this is going to show me the actual business account record and any attachments or notes on this customer. This next one's going to show me contacts. And I don't have any individual contacts listed on that first example, but if I go to that bartending school, here's the two you saw earlier. And then the list goes on. Do we have any opportunities with this customer in CRM? And the dashboards, you can almost get like that dashboard view within these side panels. Okay, so I'm actually seeing almost like a sales dashboard just broken down right for this business account that I'm already looking at. I'm not going to go through all of them, guys, but you can see here, these are available. Acumatica, again, for the three main entities in Acumatica or objects like business accounts, this is something that is starting to ship with the base product. So although this has been a tool that's been there, a lot of people didn't use it because it was just something else to set up, and Acumatica said, hey, when anyone looks at a business account, these are the different things they'd want to see, the KPIs by account. So they're now shipping these types of templates with the base product as well. Okay, I'm going to jump over into the AP bill entry. I'm going to cover really just two more things on my end, guys. I want to give Seth a few minutes today. The first one was on appointments and the service module. One of the complaints that we heard for a while was just, on a service order or appointment, being able to tie in an accounts payable invoice. So, you can now create expense receipts within an appointment, and then you can mark it up for billing. And similarly, you can create accounts payable invoices and then mark those up for billing. So I actually did that already on this one here. Let me just open that back up because my browser expired on it. But basically, from the detail records here, you're able to hit the Create AP Bill button. And then you can go ahead and you can actually enter in an accounts payable invoice for that item. What that does is then it links it to the appointment. And then again, the technician or supervisor, whoever's responsible for that, would then go in and they would actually, they could mark up you got the cost on it from the AP bill, but you'd mark up the actual, what you're going to bill the customer for that. A good example of this is if you're doing a multi-day appointment and you have an invoice from a subcontractor, or you have to go pick up a part and it's not a credit card receipt expense, it's something that you guys have terms with that local part provider and they give you an invoice. You're able to automate that at the point of service order or appointment entry rather than doing that after the fact and kind of as a workaround. I'm not going to actually go enter that just because I'm looking at the time and we're having too much fun. Time's flying. I want to make sure we have time to dedicate to e-commerce. The other two areas I would highlight, and these are big topics, so I'm going to do it quickly, is around the manufacturing edition. A large portion of our customer base is a manufacturer or distributor. We do have construction folks, we have service folks, but a lot of you do distribute or manufacture. So I wanted to highlight the native integration that Acumatica is shipping in the base of the product. This is an additional subscription fee for this connector with Arena PLM. And really any manufacturer like consumer electronics, high-tech electronics, med devices, biotech, oftentimes need a more advanced PLM or a product lifecycle management tool. Acumatica is now shipping the base product with a connector to, from our perspective, one of the best breed PLM systems out there, Arena PLM. And Arena PLM is similar to Acumatica. It's mid-market, cloud-based, and it's sold on an annual user-based license subscription, not so much like Acumatica, but typically it's your engineering and R&D folks that are in your PLM system. Okay, these are the type of activities that happen outside of ERP, right? Engineering, bills of material, supply chain collaboration, change management, and product development. That's traditional PLM activities. So what Acumatica has done is that you can now integrate at these different points with Arena PLM. So inventory items to Acumatica, engineering BOMs to Acumatica manufacturing BOMs. Categories then can be converted when they're in Acumatica to sales categories for those finished goods SKUs. And then any vendor master data can be read by Arena. So it's a two-way integration for those objects that you're seeing listed here. We're actually starting to implement this with our first customer already. They bought right before this was released, and we're really excited to see that be successful. And then now SWK is also a reseller of Arena PLM, so we can, if anyone's interested in evaluating a PLM system, now actually offer you Arena within our suite of solutions that we represent. I'm going to take just about 2 more minutes, and I'll have Seth cover a few other features. Acumatica, for a long time, has been able to produce more of an ATP or available to promise functionality. What are you available to promise? But we weren't able to get down to a finite capability or capable to promise. So what this means, and this is really for manufacturers, is that companies need to be able to give their customers a confirmed delivery date when the sales order is created. So in previous versions of Acumatica, that really wasn't a possibility, right? You had to confirm that the date can be met for the request date. This ties into the advanced planning and scheduling and a finite capacity model. So Acumatica has all of the data to be able to go in and calculate, do we have the raw materials? If not, can we purchase those raw materials? When will they come in? When can we schedule the different operations? Okay, so there's a lot of data that Acumatica had to crunch. That's why it was so difficult. There were a lot of pieces foundationally that had to be in place first before capable to promise could be implemented. Well, that's no longer the case. In 2021 R1, I've already demoed this for folks that were really interested in seeing capable to promise functionality. I've looked at it, it looks great. I'm excited to demo it more, and I'm excited for us to implement this more with customers. So now we can actually do a capable to promise query on a sales order, and you can either accept that, you can reject it, you can negotiate with the customer. There's a little workflow to be able to handle that, and then schedule the work orders and then have a date that you are capable to promise that to a customer. If you have any more questions about that, I was hoping to have time to actually get into the demonstration and show you capable to promise. I know that's a feature that we're going to get a lot of questions on over the next 6 months, so you can reach out to me if you have any other questions, or reach out to our marketing team, fill in a form on our website, ask a consultant you're working with, really any way, whatever the best communication method you have. with someone here at SWK, we'll get the question answered. So I'm only leaving about 9 minutes, but I did want Seth to just highlight some of the features that he had planned on mentioning about, and then we'll have Mike just give a quick update on construction. So apologize, Seth. I think you asked for 10 minutes, and I'm going to give you about 7.
No worries, Jeremy. That's all good stuff, so I appreciate it. Can you just confirm you can hear me?
Confirmed.
Great. Yeah, so just a few of the other enhancements. A couple of these are actually just the distribution suite, but I did just want to mention them briefly because it does, I think, play with the e-commerce stuff. But so dropship enhancements, you've always been able to create a purchase order from a sales order, and whether you're going to drop ship it straight from the vendor or receive the goods in, maybe you want to order some to stock as well, and then fulfill the shipment. You've always been able to do that, but they've added some functionality to, we have some customers who, when you create the purchase order for, say, 1,000 widgets, but the vendor might only be able to ship 90, right? Or maybe there's a return right, that comes back to that vendor. Being able to have a little bit more flexibility on that, on the fulfillment from the vendor side, and how that communicates to the purchase order and the sales order, they've made some enhancements there. So that's nice. Next slide. From a matrix inventory perspective, so for those of you familiar with this, the classic example, you can see there's t-shirts, but the idea is if you have size and color, right, on a given item, there's one, one t-shirt, and for each, for the 2XL black that's there in the list at the top, that's one SKU, right? So we manage that through a template item, and especially when it comes to e-commerce, right? That's our product page, is that t-shirt, that's our product. And then the options we might select are going to be variants, on that product. But those are all SKUs coming back. There are some complications when you might have modifiers that aren't actual SKUs, and happy to talk to anybody who might have questions about that. But they added some improvements to the template page where you can have an image, on the template, not just those variants. Being able to, you can have spaces instead of dashes and things like that. So the template is really designed to help you be able to update all those items as well. So, if you make changes to for pricing or the item class it might be in, or some of the attributes, you can, update these things in bulk. So they made some improvements there. Next. And they also made improvements. So the BigCommerce connector that Acumatica built, I think they actually acquired it from Kenzium, then kind of rebuilt it. It came out in 2019 R1, and then the Shopify connector came out in just in 2020 R2. And when BigCommerce came out, there was a little bit of trouble with the refunds just because there wasn't a refund API that BigCommerce had. But they've worked real hard to improve that process so that you can better manage refunds now in BigCommerce. So you can initiate them from Acumatica or initiate them from BigCommerce, and both systems know what to do. And of course, there's the payment gateway provider, right, Authorized.net or the like, that also needs to actually initiate that. So they've made improvements, to that flow to be able to manage it from either side. Another improvement they made, so within the Shopify or the BigCommerce connector, you have what's called entities, which would be the customer, the shipment, the order. So each of these entities have their own configuration you can do. Some of them can be bidirectional, right? Like sales orders can be bidirectional if we want to actually send orders to, BigCommerce or Shopify, so that people can see, orders that might have happened over the phone or so on. And then certain ones are only going to be, import or export, right? We're only going to import payments, things like that. But so they've added, if you have customizations to Acumatica, which maybe you do, they've added to not just the mapping fields to be able to map custom fields or attributes to different fields on, say, a product or a sales order, but you can also now filter by those. So if we only want to bring in, sales orders that have a certain field on them, we can. And if we only want to export, say, products that have a custom field that we've created and put on those products, we can now filter by those custom fields and attributes. Next. So one of the other things they do with Shopify and the Shopify integration is that Shopify's risk analysis. So if they think there's a shady deal, right, it talks about the bad actors, or as George W. would have said, the evildoers. If one classic example of that is they purchased overnight shipping, and it's a different bill to address than a shipping address, right? And they purchased a lot of products, right? They're trying to get it in real quick because it's a stolen credit card or something like that, and they want to get the goods before people have time to figure it out, right? So Shopify will has the built-in risk analysis for you, and they've taken that into accommodation or consideration in Acumatica. So now it can come in on risk hold as a status, and then gives you a chance to look at that before the shipment gets created and fulfilled. And then once you say, no, that looks good, or I talked to them and it's okay, you can remove it from hold. You could also potentially do that with a, business events or so on. Something comes in and it's overnight shipping and those don't match, right? Like give somebody an alert to take a look at those as well. But nice to have that built-in functionality from the Shopify integration. And then lastly here, one of the other things that they're able to do with a Shopify integration is if you have, say, multiple warehouses or multiple locations and you want to be able to show that to the customers on the product page, right? Like we have 50 of these in Portland, and we have 50 of these in Somerville, then we can show that to the customers on the product page. So, that took a little bit of doing. Otherwise, it was kind of a customization in previously, but now we can do that with the Shopify integration using your warehouses in Acumatica. So I think that's it for me for now. If anybody has any questions or would like to see the Shopify, the BigCommerce integration, or like to see any of these things in play, feel free to reach out to me or anybody at SWK, and they'll pass you my information. But thanks for the time, and I'll kick it to you, Mike.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it. I will be quickest of everyone. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that Acumatica focused on in the release of the construction edition here for the first release of 2021. And the first is they added some functionality to AP payment, where it's easier to see outstanding and open AP invoices by project, by commitment for subcontractor, which essentially helps out contractors that do AP on a pay when paid basis. The second one is they've partnered with the CFMA so that you have the ability now through an integration to take a peek at how other folks in your specific niche industry are performing and sort of see a watermark for the performance in your particular industry. And then finally, Procore is something that they've been really focused on over the last 2 or 3 releases, and this one's no exception. This is what they spent a lot of their time focusing on in this release, and the whole idea was to really enhance the bidirectional capacity of this integration to the point where the integration with Procore is about as good as any integration to Procore out there. So those are the 3 really big things, the Procore one being, I think, the most exciting. If there's any interest in any of those or in the construction edition in general, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Jolene, I know we didn't save a ton of time for questions here, but I wanted to at least check in with you and see if we had any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy, Mike, and Seth. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the questions section of GoToWebinar. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have subject matter experts here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And it looks like we did have one come in, Jeremy. Where can we go to find more information on Acumatica's integration with Procore?
That's a great question. You can actually reach out to us, and Mike Duberstein, who was just speaking on construction, was on the call. So he can help get you guys information. Sometimes with this most recently released information, it's tough to have a lot of the marketing collateral, like a data sheet or a URL link to send you to. So if you just want to drop your email address in the chat box, Jolene can make sure that that's routed to Mike, and we'll get you all the information and answer any questions around that.
Great, and that looks like all the questions we have, so give me 1 minute as I take back screen control. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeremy, Mike, and Seth, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today. And thank you everyone for attending our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a great day, everyone.